They made us demand things from our man that they systematically keep him from getting. So he can't give it to us. And so we married to the government. They take care of us like our man should. They give us food, clothes, shelter, health care, child care, education, an apartment. Whatever it is we need, they step in as our man. And they only do that, as I said, for the two reasons: to make him look inadequate and to make us not want to be bothered with him, to destroy his little ego that he got left, and to make us think that we are better than him. And we'll tell him, I can make it. I don't know why you can't make it.
As of 1960, 2/3 of all Black American children were living with both parents. That declined over the years until only 1/3 were living with both parents in 1995. So it's not the legacy of slavery that destroys the African American family.
It's the legacy of the welfare state.
Shalom. I would like to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakudash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all you sister Akim, pushing this word across the four corners of the world. And that's what you just saw from this previous video, a very outspoken Israelite woman by the name of Shaharatazad Ali. And over these years, she has been very vocal about the wicked discrepancies between the so-called Black family households, and rightfully so. And between the years of 1890 to 1950, so-called Black women in America were married more than so-called white women within America. And as you should know, that meant that the so-called Black man, which was the husband, the mother as the wife, and the children was all together within the household. So by that bond, that created that nuclear family structure. And really after 1950, the so-called Black family households got interrupted or overwhelmed by the expansion of the welfare state, which was a diabolical project engineered by Esau Edom, who happens to be the so-called Caucasian race in today's time. And according to the Holy Bible, the biblical Edomites are known as the wicked. And that takes me to the book of Psalm 37:12. The wicked plotted against the just, and the just represents the Israelites. And what made us just or godly was because that the Heavenly Father Yahweh gave us only his laws, statutes, and commandments to be joined unto him as a people. And by that holy covenant, we as the biblical Israelites were supposed to be those righteous examples unto these other nations on how to govern the earth in righteousness via the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Heavenly Father Yahweh. However, our forefathers broke that holy covenant, and one of them within Deuteronomy 28 verse 56, it goes into how the Israelite woman's eye should be evil toward the Israelite husband. And that's why you see in today's time that friction, the division and conflicts within the so-called Black, Latino, Hispanic, and Native American family households, especially the so-called Black family households. And that's because the so-called Blacks or the so-called Negroes within America or the so-called African Americans are from the tribe of Judah, which represents the top tribe of the nation of Israel. So that's the head. And by the tribe of Judah being the head of the nation of Israel, they were going to get hit the hardest compared to the rest of the tribes within the nation of Israel. And hopefully through the spirit, this lesson, and you're going to see after this lesson, it highlights the division between the so-called Black family households. So back again within Psalm 37:12, the wicked plotted against the just and gnashed upon him with his teeth. And again, the wicked represents these Edomites, especially from the hierarchy of Esau Edom, who systematically designed these different programs, plots, schemes, and projects upon the nation of Israel. And once you go to the word project, it goes into like a scheme, a plan, a draft, or something being thrown forth. And for one example, the public housing assistance. And that was a very evil agenda and enabled the so-called Black woman to be in odds with the so-called Black man within the family household. And I had did a video a couple years ago or so regarding the Chicago public housing. And the public housing was created around 1937. So from the beginning until the late 1950s, Most families that lived in Chicago housing projects were mostly Italian immigrants. And around that time frame, they did very rigorous background checks in order to get in. And they even had social workers doing welfare checks on those particular families. So fast forward to the mid-1970s, around 65% of the housing projects were made up by so-called Black Americans. And around 93% of those households were headed by single females. And that's because the so-called powers that be that created this demonic housing authority, again, Esau Edom, gave these so-called Black women incentives by having the man or the father out of the households. And one of those incentives were reduction off of your rent. And within that lesson I did a couple years ago on that documentary, they showed how the social workers would routinely check these Black female-ran households and to make sure and see that they did not have any type of clues that a man has been there. So by the Israelite man being out the household, that enabled this American government ran by Esau Edom to step into this Israelite woman's household and to fulfill all the duties that she would need, from clothing, shelter, food, healthcare, childcare, and the list goes on. And that diabolical plan or vibration created the dependency of the Israelite woman upon Esau Edom via his government assistance. And that dynamic duo between Esau and the Israelite woman traces all the way back into the garden of the serpent and Eve. And that's why you see and hear within today's time of the so-called strong Black independent woman. And that takes me to Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord Yahweh had made. And that wasn't an actual serpent, it was more so a malicious, treacherous, and cunning man, which happens to be that same spirit that's within Esau Edom in today's time. And he said unto the woman, Yea, how the Elohim said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And that represents these wayward doctrines, philosophies, and ideologies in today's time. And one in particular, feminism, or women's liberation. The advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. And this wicked political movement by the name of feminism has really destroyed the mindset of these modern women, especially the Israelite women, where they have been programmed to think and say, I do not need a man. Verse 2, and the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Elohim have said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. So by that serpent being more subtle than any beast of the field, which goes into how that spirit that's within Esau Edom, they are very crafty and skillful in their deception. So therefore they were more devious than the other beasts of the field, which represents these other nations. Because what other nation created this public housing assistance, or this Section 8 housing, that was intentionally created to divide the family structure within the so-called Black household and make the so-called Black woman more dependent on the welfare system? Like no other nation came up with these diabolical plots, but the nation of Esau Edom. So the serpent told the woman, Ye shall not surely die. So he programmed her to be disobedient. So that serpent, again, going into that malicious, sly, and treacherous man, he charmed and ran game upon Eve, and she was seduced by this doctrine of feminism. And that's why it's stated within 2 Corinthians 11:3, how the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety. Verse 5, For the Elohim do know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Hence, Jeremiah 31:22, how the Lord Yahweh created a new thing in the earth, and how a woman should compass a man. And that pleasant goes into the word desire. This was something Eve long wished for. And a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Of the woman became the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. But going back to the point of this lesson, this was the beginning of that dynamic duo between the serpent and Eve. And through the gift of the Holy Spirit, you can see that special pact between these two characters in today's time. However, by Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua depriving the Israelite woman of wisdom, she do not truly understand that she had made a covenant unto death. And as is stated within Ecclesiasticus 12 and 10, never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. And that takes me right to Proverbs 4 and 14. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. And again, the wicked is referring to the tabernacle of Esau, Edom, and more so the hierarchy of them. The ones who are in charge and engineer this movement of feminism. Just look at today's time. The mass majority of the Israelite women, they took that bait. And for the most part in today's time, it's still working toward their advantage. But again, by Yahushua depriving the Israelite woman with wisdom, she do not have that spiritual discernment to know the wiles of her enemy. Because very, very soon when Esau implements his NWO, which goes into his left-hand great reset, they are going to discard you because you have fulfilled their mission. And these are the true patterns of Esau Edom. Like for example, this music industry. Once you sell out and fulfill their duties, and once you are no longer marketable unto the people, they sit you on the shelf. Or they would get rid of you, like ending your life. So for you Israelite women in today's time, what you think by entering into that path of the wicked, what the so-called powers that be are going to do to you when they implement this NWO. So back again within Proverbs 4 and 14, enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass away. Verse 16, for they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. And here's the point, verse 17, for they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. And that wine of violence is ultimately that Babylonian wine, which goes into Esau's democracy, his westernization, his science, his technology, his religions, his culture or way of life, his thought processes, and of course, feminism. So you have drank the wine of violence. And that takes me to Isaiah 28 verse 18. And your covenant, which goes into your pact or your agreement with death, shall be disannulled, meaning that it's going to be canceled or voided out. And I bring this point out from time to time, that movie by the name of Geronimo, an American Legend, and it came out in 1993. At the end of that movie, when Geronimo and his soldiers were getting hauled off to a concentration camp, you had those sellout Apache Indians who made a covenant with Esau at the beginning or the middle part of that movie that joined forces into the American cavalry and by going against Geronimo and his soldiers. So at the very end of that movie, those sellout Apache Indians were all hauled up with Geronimo and his soldiers. Again, never trust thy enemy. So in your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then you shall be trodden down by it. And that's for you Israelite women that stand up for this wicked political movement by the name of feminism. And ultimately by you Israelites want to be in war with Esau Edom. And that takes me to Isaiah 32 verse 9. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Many days and years shall you be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. And a part of that disannulment goes into that government assistance that Esau Edom gave out to you. And this whole evil concept by the name of feminism wasn't created by the Rockefellers in order for you to be equal with men. Ultimately, they only did it so they can tax the majority of the US population, and also by destroying the Israelite man. It wasn't because they cared for you and they want to help you out. It was only suitable to utilize the Israelite woman in order to get to the Israelite man. So many days and years shall you be troubled, ye careless women, for the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. Verse 11, tremble ye women that are at ease, be troubled ye careless ones, strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. Verse 12, they shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. So that condition of being relaxed and just being all comfortable is about to come to an abrupt end for you Israelite women, and really for all of you women. And we're going to see that prideful theory being tested, that I'm strong, I'm independent, I do not need a man, when all hell breaks loose within this American society. Because within the book of Isaiah 19 verse 16, when it goes into, in that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and that goes into these so-called tough men within this American society, then what type of state are you women going to be in, especially you Israelite women, which are the weaker vessel? So that dynamic duo between the serpent and Eve will very soon come to an end. And after this video, you're going to see those byproducts of I do not need a man within today's society. So with that, hopefully you all was edified, you all stay strong, keep pushing forward. Shalom.
Between 1890 and 1950, the marriage rate was much higher among black women than white women. A fraction of black children lived in homes without their fathers. But everything changed with the expansion of the welfare state. It divided the household and created a dependency on welfare. This kind of reminds me of what President Reagan said.
I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
So, what happened? What's the mechanism? Here is a detailed look at how the welfare state played a role in the dissolving of the family structure over the years.
When black men are trying to date and or marry women, most particularly black women, each individual man has to pretty much compete with the United States government in terms of being able to provide a woman with security. That's what you have to do. You have to compete essentially with the United States government. Some men can do it. If you make over 6 figures, you represent more than like a little around 4% of the black community. You're over 6 figures, and yet that's a number we throw around a lot, you know. But if you don't make that, she can replace you. And if she doesn't like what the lifestyle that you're trying to provide, she can take you to court. She can leave you and either find somebody else or rely on government. So we come to these kinds of perspectives about institutions out of a history of never having been supported by them in any substantive way.
Historically, women needed men because that's how the oppression structure was set up. We were hostages. We couldn't have credit cards, couldn't own property, couldn't vote, had no voice. Well, of course we'd partner up with a man because we needed one so that we didn't starve to death because men used force to keep us under their thumb. Now, fortunately, things have evolved, and guess what? We don't need men. So if it comes to being in a relationship, it's a matter of bringing something to the table. And if what you're bringing to the table is a toddler-like mentality where you are running around, running amok, expecting a mommy and expecting some kind of subordinate, concubine kind of setup, no woman wants that. So of course you see so many men who are single because they've never realized that they need to actually be tolerable individuals. And as a result, they are single because nobody wants you. Of course, just like a job, if you want to actually do well and actually have the opportunity to have that, you need to develop the skills to be in a relationship.